Hey everyone! In this video, I'm going to go over the resource management aspects of the Great Storm. We'll talk about the types of resources that come, how you might want to spend your storm coins, which are the event currency, as well as some of the breakpoints that I think you should keep an eye on for this event. I want to start off with a few key points before we get into the details. Number one is that everyone should spend at least 500 emeralds in this event, even free-to-play players, and you should consider going to 3,000. Number two is that everyone should try to get to at least 2,500 energy and should give good consideration towards getting at least 3,500 and possibly 5,000. The rewards at those points are very strong. Next, and although this is not maybe strictly speaking resource management consideration, with this capturing locations task and the event board itself, if you can't beat the boss, you shouldn't move at all. Just save all of the coins and action points to be converted at the end. You'll have an opportunity to visit the shop after the event completes. But the unused action points will convert at a higher value than just capturing part of the map. Next point is that this is kind of a medium tier quality of event in general. It's good because the reward type is very good. Chaos Particles is one of the more desirable types, and the return for spending amount is good but not amazing. And finally, that you can kind of spend emeralds and energy to whatever point you're comfortable with. A lot of events have a big spike of rewards at the end of these chains, but this event trails down at the end. So this one does not have a peak at the end. You can kind of stop whenever you want without fear of missing out something at the end of the reward chain. Alright, so then on to the detail. I'll start off as though you get an extra day out of the event. So everything that we look at here in terms of the task ROIs will be based on the assumption that you do get a fourth day from this event. Before we get into that, I want to talk about the types of rewards that come from this. Pretty much every task is going to give you either action points or storm coins. Buy emeralds gives emeralds directly, but if there's not a ×4 sale, and there almost never is during this event, then you usually want to skip that. All of my emerald value numbers are going to be based on converting these action points to Storm Legacy at 1.6 chests per action point, which is the payout that you get for any spares that you have at the end of the event. And also spending all of your storm coin on Storm Legacy, which then the legacy chests that you get from these two initial rewards will open up into these resources that you see here: gold, pet potions, pet summoning egg, chaos particle, and storm coin. So storm coin I do have listed here still in that resource type because it can be spent in variable ways. But the emerald value that I've assigned to the coin assumes that you put it to Storm Legacy, and the Storm Legacy opens up in this pattern. I have gold and pet potions set to no value. Pet summoning eggs are 250, chaos is 7, and we've covered Storm coin. So if you disagree with any of those valuations, you'll want to visit the preferences section where you can specify your own emerald values for those resources. Final note on spending the Storm coin. The emerald value is best for most of the non-flawless pet gems, but really you can only buy so many of those before you've got all that you'll ever need, and in the long run you'll have excess coins that you need to spend or that you should be spending on one of the other categories. Technically speaking, the pet soul box is the best emerald value. However, in my experience, you're going to be chasing chaos particles much longer than pet souls, so I convert the soul coin into Storm Legacy chests. And even if you're on the fence there, really the 2/3 or 60% of the value within the Storm Legacy is going to pet souls anyway, and the other 40 to chaos particle, because remember I have gold and pet potions set to no value. So my recommendation for the storm coin is spending that on Storm Legacy, unless you're new enough to need some of those lesser stones, the excellent or below. That's your best value there, as you still need them. Or maybe if you're a very big spender or long-term player, you've got most of your pets maxed out, and your biggest concern is having the option to choose the pet souls yourself, in which case maybe you want those boxes And then when the next pet comes out, you'll apply all of those souls to get the evolution maxed out right away for that next pet. But I would imagine that's a minority of users. All right, then, jumping into the tasks and emerald returns, I'm going to start this off at the free-to-play level. This is carrying in a few assumptions here, that you'll log in every day, that you do have VIP even if you're not spending on this event, so you may need to adjust this yourself if you choose to utilize this site. Skipping down to the bottom, it does assume that you have 80 summoning eggs on hand. It's a good idea to save 80 at all times just in case this event rolls around. So if you don't have those yet, you should start saving, and that you will open 12 adventure chests during this event. For this reason, it's also not a bad idea to have an adventure going earlier in the day if you are someone who can log into this event in the evening, and then open your chests within the period of the event, just in case you have one adventure that does not go perfectly. And then capturing locations, you may get that all the way down to 53, but if you can, my recommendation is to get that down at 45. If you can, finish the boss off in 2 or less attacks, maybe 3 attacks, still worthwhile. The payout that you get for achieving this last milestone, you do get some of the event rewards out of that, but the payout from the spare action points converting to chests at the end of the event is better than what you would get from taking extra steps if you don't need to make them. So I usually do this by completing the 2 outer rings of the event map. I skip the buff at the top right. I think that is the one about magic or physical defense, which for me, the location battles are pretty straightforward. The boss fight is the only hard one, and the big threat coming there is the pure damage from the storm itself. So that buff doesn't do a whole lot to really reduce the number of moves that I need to make, so I just skip it. I also skip the left Harbinger Stele that's on the inner ring. That one I think reduces the effectiveness of my magic attacks, but I just don't use magic heroes on the boss, and that becomes irrelevant. It does usually take me 2 hits to get the boss down. I have not yet found the perfect team to do it in 1. I know there are also a handful of people out there who have figured out how to bring down the boss with 35 or maybe even fewer moves with extremely low resistance, but I've not yet figured that one out. So if you have, congrats on being more clever than I am. And if you want to be helpful, feel free to drop that one in the comments with whichever team it is that you're using. All right, so from there, let's talk about the spending tasks. And really, there are only 2 in this event, spending energy and spending emeralds. As you can see from these preview charts, there are some pretty massive spikes. So just to give you a sense of where those are at, we have 100 emeralds with this gigantic payout of 8-1, and 500 emeralds, again, is almost 3 times the return. So I think really everyone, even if you're completely free to play, you don't have a ton of emeralds on hand, everyone should be spending at least 500, which you're getting from Arena or whatever other payouts in the game. The rest of these look kind of horrible by comparison, but these numbers aren't that bad. They just pale in comparison to the 8-1 return that we have here. But coming in at 3,000 emeralds, you still get 54%. That's a good return on spending emeralds, so still very worthwhile. And it does drop down over time throughout the rest of the event. Upper 30s, and then it's going to dip down into the 20s. And then finally at the end, I believe it picks back up, just over 20 at the 90,000 mark. So not amazing returns on the upper ends of spending emeralds in this event. So while Chaos Particles is one of the better places, I think, to spend emeralds in this game, if you're not a pretty big spender, I don't think this is really the best event to go all the way to the end. This event does come around fairly often, and there are some better ones out there to get a higher return. Even a few each year where you can get Chaos Particles at a better ratio, like Summerfest, where you can get a pretty good number of Chaos Particles if that's what you're chasing. All right, so let's take a look at Spend Energy. Here, there's also a very big spike towards the beginning here at the 2,500 energy level, and it remains quite high for the next couple milestones as well. At 3,500, you get 1.5 times back the emeralds that it will cost you to get to that level, assuming no bottles. And the 5,000 mark also very strong at about 70%. The rest of the event is pretty good as well. going between, it looks like 30 and 45%. None of those are bad numbers, but they're not quite as good as the beginning, so it is maybe not worth stressing out about getting to the very end of this. All right, so again, I think even free-to-play players should spend a little bit of emeralds on this thing, you know, putting in maybe 700 for a few energy purchases here. You'll get all the 50s done and then spend a few at 100, again, assuming no spare bottles. That'll get you to the 500 milestone of emeralds. And as you can see here, you're spending only 700 emeralds, but you get 3,500 of extra 3,500 emeralds worth of extra rewards based on that spend for an ROI of 500%. Very hard to beat that. But then it's still worthwhile to go a little bit further in. I think this 7,000 level is a very strong return, over 150%. After that, your return ratio is going to start to go down quite a bit. You're probably going to have to start getting some bottled energy to get any further into this task. So this 7,000 spend energy breakpoint is another really strong one here. You're still over 150%, getting some really nice rewards out of the event. Not quite as good a ratio as before, but with a larger spend, you can't really expect to get 500% returns. All right, so then just to complete the picture, maybe you're a bigger spender, you go most or all the way through the energy and then start to drop. As you put more emeralds into it, you'll continue to get a decent amount of rewards, but you'll see the spend emerald ratio go down as well as the total ROI for the event. You can see we started out at really high numbers, and then if you get all the way to completing all of these spending events all together, your ROI drops down to 34%. Again, not the worst event, but there are better ones to be had. All right, so let's take a look at the event without the extra day. We'll take the same starting point with all the free-to-play maxed out except for capture locations at 45. The spend emerald task is going to be exactly the same regardless, so really the only thing that changes is the spend energy. This still has a nice spike here at the beginning, it's just not quite as pronounced. And the payouts that were about 50% in the other 4-day version of the event are a bit lower here. But still very nice returns on the first couple of milestones here. And we can see that, still having a very nice return for the 3,500 point on spending energy, which will include hitting the 500 emerald milestone. I'm sorry, it looks like I skipped one. The 2,500 milestone is actually a little bit better, spending only 500 exactly, and then you have 500% return. All right, and then I'll just step through a few of these other milestones as well. All of the same ideas apply, that as you get further and further into it, the ROI is going to go down. All right, so I hope that helps you in your planning. Thanks for watching.